Welcome to Rebooting the Music Mainframe, a free online music symposium presented by Sled and our friends at Byta, the platform for sending digital audio files and streams. I'm Sean Peche, Festival Manager for Sled Island. And before we start, I'd like to thank our funders. I'd like to thank Factor, the Government of Canada and Canada's private radio broadcasters, and the Canada Council for the Arts. I don't know how many of you have been tuning in over the course of the week, but we're kind of in the home stretch of the symposium. Tomorrow's our last day. So I'd like to just kind of plug the panels that are happening tomorrow first. If you join us at 12 p.m. using the exact same link you joined this one with, you can see the digital archive, which is a panel on the challenges and opportunities that digital tools provide for preserving one's music and preserving it in a way that it can be reused and potentially make money. And then at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, the exact same time that this one's happening, we've got one called Enacting Change. We thought it was appropriate to end the week off with a panel sort of after we've identified myriad problems and opportunities within the changing landscape to have a panel focused on how we can actually change these things. So I'm looking forward to both. I hope you are too. Again, you can use the same link to join them tomorrow. Tonight, I'm really excited about this panel. And I'll just give a little background on how we got to this. As we were putting together a symposium on digital, the changing digital music landscape, it felt weird to not include something about virtual events and digital events. Everyone's been inundated with them for the past 2 years. And us as a festival, we've gone through 2 festivals where we had to kind of change our approach to it. And in doing so, we had millions of questions like, what do we want to present? What do people want to see? What barriers exist for musicians, financial or logistical or creatively, to kind of change to an online event? Are there artists that just don't fit the virtual space? And one of the main questions that was kind of on our mind was something more to do with, is this something that has an expiration date, or is what's been happening in the last 2 years something that kind of foreshadows where music may be heading, or as a companion piece? So those are all the kind of questions we had as we were planning our stuff. And we thought we might as well invite 3 smarter, more experienced people than me to talk about them and hopefully answer some of those questions. And hopefully people walk away from this inspired or with a little theoretically come out of a pandemic. So again, I'll pass it over to the smarter people in the room, and take it away, Laura.
Thanks very much, Sean. Really happy to hear that Sled is aiming for a return in person this year as we talk about live streaming. Yeah, really great to be here. Fantastic people on this panel. I'm not going to get you to reintroduce yourselves. People know how to read your bios. Instead, I'm going to do a rapid round of questions where you can answer in a few words or a sentence, just to get to know you a little bit. I'll throw in some answers too. So these are 6 questions. Brandon, I'll start with you, and then Tim, and then I'll go, and then we'll switch. We'll cycle through a few. So Brandon, favorite live streaming moment so far?
We just had a Patreon-a-thon, which is kind of like if you're familiar with like the radiothons. So we just launched a Patreon, and we invited our entire community to raise awareness and get them to subscribe. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Tim?
It was probably last spring where I got a friend of mine who's a violin player, musician, was farming out in Ontario. And during one of my live streams, he sort of like gave us a tour of the maple farming facilities, I guess, and showed us how it all worked, and then like played some like classical music out in the woods.
Beauty. Love it. Okay. I watched a couple get engaged during a Vance Joy live stream, which was pretty amazing. Worst live streaming moment so far, Brandon?
Worst live streaming moment, I would have to say that one of our artists spent a lot of money on his performance for one of our live streams, and the streaming crashed in the middle of it, so we had to We had to re-air it.
Oh God, worst nightmare. Okay, Tim.
I think, yeah, fortunately not too many bad ones, but some technical issues. The internet in Montreal apparently just like disappearing for an hour. And so not being able to stream, but also not being able to communicate with anyone why that wasn't happening.
I think I've blacked out all of my worst.
There's only good ones.
I wrote the question and then I was like, no, I'm totally blanking on this question right now. Okay, next. Most unexpected gain in live streaming, Brandon.
Unexpected gain. We launched a Twitch and I had no clue that it would grow as fast as it did.
Great, great. Tim.
Just actually making money from it.
Yeah. Okay. We weren't doing live streaming, so just doing it and then doing I think we've done almost 1,200 shows since March 2020. So that's been fun. Just doing it. Okay, Brandon, what would you leave now after having done it so much? What would you say to people that you should leave behind when you're about to live stream? Just quick answer.
Leave behind, like never do again.
Like, don't worry about it. Like, just you think you need to, but leave behind.
I think just not worrying so much about like timing and a run of the show. I think it's better to just kind of go with the flow, because then you get really stressed out if it doesn't go according to plan.
Yes. Nice. I love that. Tim?
I would say not to worry about the tech side of it so much. Just kind of whatever you've got, just start with that. I mean, probably if you're starting it, there's not going to be so many people watching it, and you'll build an audience over time, so you can figure out how you're doing it as you go. But yeah, just go with whatever you've got. Okay,
two more. Total the opposite of that question. What's a must-have for live streaming? No, don't say the webcam.
Well, that is, and in Wi-Fi as well. But I would say for what we do, we've noticed that it's important that some portions of our live stream we have to pre-produce, just to make sure that we don't have any technical problems.
Got it. Yes, Tim.
I would say just like a willingness to interact with people who are watching. I think that's huge.
Yeah. Okay. Must have for us is definitely we keep urging people to have some kind of like thing that it's not just like show up and do a thing, like have a theme, have a reason, have a momentum, have a gathering, have it like something that's happening in the audience, you know, like a little bit of the pre-production thing. I agree with Brandon, but it's more like come with an intention. It's probably the best way to say it. Okay, last one. Favorite pet moment.
Pet moment. My dog loves to photobomb me, or I guess to live stream bomb me. So she will definitely put her hand randomly in the middle of a live stream. It's happened a few times.
Oh, that's so cute.
This is not a pet thing, strictly speaking, but my mum in England has like a motion triggered night vision camera in the garden that she uses to kind of like track wildlife. And I've started like just showing little bits of that on the stream, just like badgers and otters and like random English wildlife.
That is amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah, we have a full Slack channel now with just like, that's called the Fur Family channel. We just like report on things that happen in live streams, and we do screen grabs all the time of animals that show up in live streams. So you can have pets at normal live shows. So this has been a real advantage. I just want to point that out. It's not enough talked about it, but how much animals have been playing a part in live streaming. Okay, thank you for answering the lightning round of questions. It's good to get into it that way. So Brandon, I want to get in a little bit deeper into your platform and its mission to, you know, lift up underrepresented voices. What do you think that live streaming has changed for that mission?
Great question. So the reason why we started the Digitalog is to provide just educational resources to people who are looking to get into the music industry. And we're based in New York City, which is one of the top 3 cities in the United States for music. But we really wanted to do this for cities that had musicians and music creatives who can't make it to Los Angeles or Nashville or New York City. So one of the best things that's happened in this time is that, you know, I get messages from people in Australia, and I get messages from people in Africa, and I get messages from people in Canada and all these Latin America, all of these amazing places. And they're just saying that they're able to feel like they are a part of these cities and they're able to have access to the resources that we've been providing. So I'm, you know, really proud of that. And that wouldn't have been possible without live streaming.
Yeah, I think that that's amazing. And I didn't think about it that way, because you are starting with quite a rich, like you're the founder of the platform, and yourself, like you all started with quite a rich background, and so to lend that knowledge online to those folks is amazing. So just a follow-up to that, your role specifically is in artist discovery. So how has live streaming affected that role?
So it's actually, I mean, back to my earlier point, it's allowed us to actually showcase some artists that aren't in New York City. So one of the things that we'll do is we'll do like a virtual showcase for artists. And it's really fun because we allow them to have creative direction when they're producing this showcase. And so whether they are in London or Australia or Los Angeles, or wherever they are, they can, you know, create some content and share it with our entire community across the globe.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the same thing in terms of like, you never got to, like, maybe you knew there was a few fans for artists via Spotify. They'll tell you, you know, where people are listening from. But when we were doing our interactive shows like this, and you can see people that are tuning in from Ghana, or they're in Thailand, or they're in, you know, that's amazing. That's amazing, just to speak to those audiences directly. And Tim, for you, I mean, you've had touring international experiences, but, you know, like not to like, it doesn't have to be about who you're meeting in the country, but what has been your main goal for live streaming?
I guess it's probably shifted a little bit over time, because when I first did it, it was like, you know, April, May 2020, something like that. And it was really just like, I wanted to play, I wanted to connect with people, like while there was no opportunity to do anything else. And so it was like, initially it was really just like to perform at all. But then I do think that there's a kernel of that is what's kind of kept things going, is that desire to keep those connections and to build new connections. And just, yeah, there's something very fundamentally like about a connection with the act of live streaming that I just, there's a lot of other things going on, but that's the thing that I love about it the most. And that's the thing that I want to just maintain and grow with it.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by connection in this sense?
Sure. Just on a fundamental level, I think like we're like, as musicians, we're like, that's kind of like what we do in some ways. Like, you know, we create this music, it resonates with someone, there's a connection that's created there. And I think that with live streaming, we're able to kind of to perform and to have people watch wherever they are. And then we have this kind of secondary connection of like just building that audience and interacting with the audience and maintaining a connection that otherwise you can only really work through releasing albums and touring and these particular moments of like, you know, somebody coming to a show or listening to a record, and like these little moments where like you're, you know, somebody's a fan of your music, but there's kind of like discrete moments where they're actually engaging with it in some ways. And so, yeah, I'm able to do that kind of like once a week regularly. I know that there's like that point of connection is happening. So wanting to have that and maintain it and grow it.
Yeah. And I wondered about this, especially for you, someone who has experimented a lot with different instrumentation on stage and just different ways of presenting your art. how has the medium of live streaming changed your art?
I think a big thing is that it's changed me as an artist, I would say, because I think like, I don't necessarily think of myself as just like a musician who is then like performing on camera and it's just like the camera and the stream is like mediating that. It's that like, now I would kind of consider myself like, I'm a musician, but I'm also like a streaming artist. So like the way that I am performing and connecting with people has shifted a little bit. As far as like the actual musical side of it, the last 2 years, honestly, on a personal level, I have struggled to feel inspired to write things. And like, that's definitely started to return in the last few months. But so as far as sort of like the new material that's being generated, that's still in kind of like a newer stage. And I think in time I will see how like the actual stuff that I'm making is changing. But I think like I am creating stuff by doing the streams, you know. I'm like the streams are up online. So like, you know, is an album that's up on Spotify, say, that's like 40 minutes long, is that like fundamentally different from like a stream that is also 40 minutes long? Like in terms of like, this is a piece of work that I've created. So it's, I don't know. I mean, this is all a little bit sort of exploratory in my mind. And I think that that's what's kind of fun and exciting about it, is like, I don't really know what this is yet, what the streaming world is yet, but it's definitely changed me as like what it is that I'm doing. Like, yeah, as an artist.
I mean, I just to pick up on that thread to ask you, Brandon, like one of the things I noticed that I really resonated with me and how Side Door operates is just that this idea of like reducing the gatekeepers and trying to give people more direct access to information and the ability to steer their careers themselves. In that, just with what Tim was saying, like, do you feel like, especially the younger artists who are working, like, what is their sense of what their art needs to be in terms of the presentation? Like, what are they thinking about when they're like, okay, I'm a new artist, the first thing I need to do to present my art is what?
I think that they think that they need a large budget in order to, I mean, it needs to be like highly produced. I mean, you know, great graphics and making sure that, you know, they pour a lot of money into the production of, in this aspect, let's say that, you know, they're live streaming with us, right? What I always tell them is just, you know, just keep it very authentic and true to you. Of course, you want to cover all of the basics, but also not overthinking the entire thing. Just making sure that, you know, you're here with your friends is what I always tell them. Like, you know, it's just you're making music and they're here to experience it, and it doesn't need to be, you know, the budget of a Super Bowl ad. You know, it's just kind of whatever you can afford to do and making sure that you're doing that. So I always tell them, you know, just don't overthink it. Don't spend so much money on it. Definitely, you know, just kind of get creative with what you have. And I also say that, you know, the less budget you have, the more creativity you have to use. So they kind of go hand in hand there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like to your point about somebody who's, you know, the worst moment is somebody spending a ton of money and then it not going right. Like it doesn't, I feel like the budget can sometimes be a buffer. Like people use it as a buffer to not be really like raw and unscripted. And that can be really, really hard. This fourth wall of the audience has been broken down in a massive way with live streaming, especially when it's on Zoom or any other interactive thing. Even with Twitch, you know, I find like the audience doesn't talk back in live shows. Like, I mean, they do, but not like they do, you know? So
well,
like,
I don't know in Calgary. In New York, sometimes it.
So what has that done for live streams? Like like just that piece of like having to constantly manage the response of the audience as you're performing. Like, how do you think your artists are managing that? Or is that just par for the course for them?
I mean, they don't necessarily pay attention to it too much because I think that they're more so preoccupied with their performance and just kind of like making sure that everything is going according to plan. But I do have, I mean, I'm really grateful for our community, because our community is I mean, they're so respectful. You know, it's you never have to fear that someone's going to go and say, hey, your music is trash, and you know, they're going to sit there and make you feel really bad about what you're doing. I think they're very supportive. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think that the comments are there, and they probably go back and check it afterwards. But usually what happens is they get, I'd say 20%, 80% of the people are reaching out to them and saying, hey, I love your music, or hey, you know, I'd love to collaborate with you, or hey, do you want to get featured in you know, my next playlist, or I have a, you know, a paid gig that I want you to be a part of. So those are the things that basically come out of that in terms of the interaction with the crowd.
Yeah, sweet. And Tim, I know you manage all that chat yourself. Do you ever find that overwhelming, and like, how do you split your attention?
Attention, that's definitely a big job. Yeah, like, and trying to like remember to focus on like actually playing when you're seeing all of these like chat messages coming up, and like, so, you know, sometimes somebody just posts something ridiculous and like I start cracking up like while I'm performing. So it's a bit of a struggle. I mean, the only difficult thing about it as far as kind of managing it is just worrying that someone's messages get lost in there, because to me, like that's what's kept me coming back to it. Like it is the chat that makes the live streaming what it is. I wouldn't be doing it without that, I don't think, because it's like, it's very much the interaction and the back and forth. So, you know, I feel like, you know, minutes of the stream can go by where it's just kind of like a bit more kind of like interactive happening. But like if it was at a live show, maybe that kind of kills the mood a little bit if you're just kind of sitting there chatting. But within the kind of the world that I'm operating in, the streams that I'm doing, I think that that's kind of a big part of what keeps it engaging. And like you're saying, like, you know, most of the time people don't just shout things out at you. And I love that as an artist. I think it's absolutely incredible, because like, I feel like although we miss the very personal aspect of being in a room with people, those people aren't talking to us that much. So it's very much like, I'm up on the stage, I'm projecting myself at you, and then that's it. And so unless there's a heckler or whatever, or like, you know, maybe some people come in and talk to me after the show, but even if they're saying nice things, like they feel awkward and I feel awkward, and then we just have this weird awkward interaction. Whereas like, if it's just people typing stuff, you lose that a little bit. And so like, I feel like I've got to know my audience over the last couple of years of doing this. And that's been amazing, just really wonderful.
That's a really interesting point I hadn't thought about there. Yeah, so go ahead, Brendan.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, what I love about Twitch, though, is that we've been able to put our custom like emojis in the chat. We also have like little call outs, like drop a 1 in the chat if you like this song, and you'll see the emojis fly in the chat, and the ones are going, and people are just kind of like really engaging. It's like, it's almost like confetti falling on you. So they enjoy that a lot. So really
do you think that is like getting closer to having a vibe, like getting some of the energy that you miss from a live show?
Honestly, I think that especially when we have live, you know, we do our live performances, but then we also have sessions where artists can like join our stream and they can, you know, play a minute worth of their song for the community. And it feels like we're at an actual event. I mean, like I said, we just had our first event in 2 years, but I was missing that feeling of seeing people react to a song and you know, just comments that they get from the different, you know, aspects of the songs and the elements and everything. So all of the colorful emojis and the ones that drop as well, and it's all on brand. It's really, really cool to see. So
what have you approached differently in the live stream versus the in-person performances? Like, you know, like, and maybe that's changed over time, that maybe at the beginning it was like a replication of what you would do on stage, and how has that evolved over time?
I think the biggest, I mean, we try to keep it consistent with a live show, but I think the biggest thing that we did was, I mean, kind of our messaging is, hey, you know, we're all in this, you know, situation together. We're not, you know, there are no live shows at the time that, you know, when we started this. So if you can support the artists, so we have a donation tab that people can donate to the artists, and it goes 100% to the artists as well. So I think that was really cool, because artists were able to see that people were actually supporting and giving. I mean, someone tipped $100 for an indie artist at one point, and they thought that was the, you know, the greatest thing that had happened to them the entire year. So just kind of that aspect right there was showing that there is like this brotherhood, sisterhood amongst all of us in music creatives in this community. So that was a really cool takeaway from the live stream era when it started.
Yeah, what about you, Tim? How has it evolved from putting your, I don't know if you felt like you were doing that, but I've heard a lot of people saying like they were trying to replicate what they do on stage and then on the screen.
Yeah, I always say that like if you're trying to replicate a live show during a stream, then it's going to fail at, like in both ways. It's going to fail as trying to imitate that live show, and it's going to fail in terms of like what actually works in a live stream context. And as I was saying before, I do think that kind of the interaction is really the key to it. And I think I probably fairly quickly just started interacting more with people, like talking a lot more between the songs than I ever would have before, and got more comfortable with that, I would say, and got better at trying to get responses from people and get conversations going. That's definitely the big thing. I think I've become a lot less precious about performing in certain sorts of ways as well, because I feel like it's a lower pressure kind of environment. And obviously because I'm just like in my house, and like, although I know that there are people watching, also I'm in my house and there's nobody else in the room. So it's a lot easier to just like try things and not worry so much about it. And yeah, I'm much more comfortable just like trying whatever now. And sometimes the moments where you're trying something that's a little bit risky and it doesn't quite go right, they can actually kind of lead to some of the best moments. I think as musicians, like the more and more comfortable we get in our skill set and the more technically proficient we get, we can lose a little bit of that vulnerability and that the edge that people can connect with in some way. So it's kind of nice to have a space where it's like, I'll just like try this new idea that it's like maybe only half done and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. You just said something that reminded me of just like, you're in your house, and some of the artists we were talking about, right at the beginning when they hadn't done this before and they were trying it out, they were really having a hard time with the lack of transition. So like at the end of the show, it'd be like click and everybody's gone and you're alone, and there's no like after party, there's no like nothing that you don't like clean up, it's just not a thing. Yeah, I'm on the stream. Bye.
What?
That's my son coming in.
Why are you working so late?
Oh, he's mad that I'm working late. Anyways, so
I ask myself all the
this
time,
is the equivalent of a pet. This is the pet equivalent situation. It was my bad. I didn't tell him I was gonna be on a live stream. Yeah, so it's like, have you experienced like, is there an equivalent of like a warm up and a cool down around live streams now? Like you need that? Is that a thing?
We've done that. So when we have our artist showcase, we'll start with playing a slideshow. I'll collect like high resolution photos, usually from the artist press kit, and play some music in the background to let people like get into the chat. And then right before the show starts, we play their latest music video, so that people can just kind of get a sense of like where their creative intent is. And then at the end of the show, we get right back into another music video, or we'll do another slideshow with some more high resolution photos and just their social media and stuff like that, so that people can kind of listen to the music and hopefully go and find their music on DSPs and stream it.
Yeah.
And so
love that. That's very great. You guys have been great about promotion. I love all of that. Like it's everywhere. It's just like, how many different channels can we hit?
I think we have a lot.
Yeah. Tim, do you have?
Yeah, yes. Similar sort of thing. And yeah, the first live stream I did, I definitely got that feedback from people. Like it just like performed. It was a side show, a side door show. And it was over Zoom, and I was just very kind of panicked, and I just like ended the thing, and it was just, everybody's gone. And it's just like, yeah. And especially I think, spring 2020, it was a little moment of connection, and to have that just like ripped away from you, to just everything just disappears, was pretty harsh. So I just have some sort of like credit sequences that I play, like a little animation that I have at the start of the stream with some music, and then the same at the end with some credits, and the chat from like YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, which is what the the shows are streamed on is all live at that point. So people can kind of like say where they're watching from or say hello or whatever. And I can kind of type stuff in there as well, both at the start and the end. So there's kind of like a warm up and a warm down. And I think that's definitely something that I learned for sure. So.
Kind of need it. Yeah. Dan Mangan, my co-founder and an artist in his own right, has moderated a bunch of shows. And so he got into the habit of just like DJing a dance party afterwards.
Nice.
And so people are all muted, but he's like playing all the jams and they just everybody's just dancing on Zoom, and it's really fun. And they've gone on for a really long time, so long that sometimes the artist actually comes back into the room and then plays like an encore, like an hour later, because people are still up and wanting to hang out, and the vibe is really good. So that was pretty lovely to see that happening. You both have mentioned monetizing live streams, and I wonder where you're at. I mean, you've obviously made choices in how to do it, but side door, we made the decision early on to gatekeep in terms of, you have to buy a ticket to come to a show, and we've had free shows, but now actually put that behind the admin wall because we're looking for people to buy a ticket and being like, I'm coming to this experience, and then they seem to come and stay for longer, and they and then it's like kind of taking the pressure off of asking for funds during the live stream, and you put value on it because it is valuable. It is inherently valuable. What you're doing is performing. And I always find like people ask me all the time, like, I have Spotify and I do this, but I have no way to give artists funds anymore, especially during the pandemic. It was just like, where do I put my money to support artists? And so I'm like, well, here's a ticket you can buy for this. So where do you stand on monetizing live streams, Brandon? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think for us, we deal with independent and emerging artists, and a lot of these artists have very small fan bases. And what we found is that we definitely, while I would love to have, sell tickets for a show that people are able to attend, some people in our community might have never heard them. So they're not inclined to probably listen to their music, purchase a ticket if they don't know exactly what they're getting into, which is why I worked with one of our Twitch managers. We have a bot. So what the bot does is constantly, not me, typing in and, hey, donate to this artist. The bot will, around the clock just kind of send reminders like, hey, if you like so-and-so's music, make sure to support them here. And then it's the donation link. Or, if you want to listen to more music, click here, and it leads to their link tree where they can, listen to music on Spotify or Apple Music, or go to YouTube, or, and I think that hopefully we'll get to a point where we can do that in the future, hopefully in a actual live setting as well. But I mean, we've been able to raise some really good money for these artists, and I think that it works out in our case better for them this way, because people can actually like real time listen to the music and support it. And I think that they probably end up making a lot better than what they would have on the ticket sales, just as a first time performing artist, or third, fourth time.
And may I ask, and you mentioned this before, is like somebody got $100 tip. Like, what is really good money for a young artist who's starting out for, related to a live stream? Because you're talking about maybe asynchronous tips that are coming in. So how do you gauge what's good?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think everyone in the community is so grateful that $5, it's $3. It's like, wow, I can't believe that this person actually, tipped me that. But I mean, to come out of an event with about $200-$300 as an independent artist who probably hasn't performed in a few years, now at this point, they're pretty happy with that. And we also have a budget for them that for them to perform. So you add that to the budget that we provide with them, and they walk away with it, and they're pretty happy. And hopefully, as we continue to grow the community, they are able to earn more and more.
Brilliant. I love that you're backing that with budget of your own. That's awesome. Tim, how do you feel about monetization? We had a conversation about this.
Yeah.
I loved all your answers. So have at it.
Hopefully I can remember them. Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts about this because I really wrestled with it, because the first the first sort of live online show that I did was a side door show, and it was a ticketed show, and it was really lovely. And I just felt like I wanted to do that as a regular thing, but I didn't think that I had a big enough audience to know that I could consistently week on week have those people come back and pay for the ticket week on week. And the nature of streaming on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch is that other people can kind of find it, they can discover it. So I like, from that point of view, I felt like, you know, if I had a bigger audience, I would have considered doing something that was like ticketed only, because I do think it's so important to value what it is that we do as musicians. But I really love doing the streaming, and I knew that actually financially it would work pretty well from people just donating during the stream. And I felt a little bit weird about that at first, and I had to get a bit more comfortable with it. And I did the same thing that Brandon was talking about. I actually only set that up recently, but like automated messages in the chat that you can just kind of program, like every 15 minutes, yeah, it will say like, you can donate over here. And there's lots of different ways of doing that. You know, on YouTube, there's like a super chat function, I think it's called, where you can just kind of like donate through the platform. Facebook, you could have ticketed events, and then with Twitch, if you're a partner or an affiliate on there, then people can kind of subscribe and donate through that. But I just do it with like a link in the video description that goes to like a PayPal, and they can also accept credit cards payments, and a link to the Interac. And that's gone really well. I've been quite surprised at it. I guess one thing that I sort of realized was that like people don't really buy CDs and like a lot of physical like music these days. I mean, you know, there's big stories about CD sales being the highest they've been in a long time or whatever recently, but like I don't buy CDs, and nobody that I know buys CDs. So I feel like for years going on tour, and a lot of people who were buying merch were people who wanted to support me as an artist. And I would do the same thing. I would go to a show and I'd buy something that I'm never going to listen to and never going to actually use, just as a way to give money to this person. It's like, so like people aren't buying CDs and LPs as much, but they still have the budgets that they had for doing that, and they still want to support the artists. So, you know, that the money is there from a fan base. And I don't think that there's a limit to it, obviously, but like it's a very, very high limit. Like a lot of people, I think, can stream online, and a lot of people can donate to support them. And I think there's a lot of possibility there. And I think that really just surprised me about the streaming was that most of the people who are donating to my streams are the same every week. Like there's you know, a core audience that watches the streams, but it changes week on week. I host guest musicians like one every 2 weeks, something like that. And so like their audience kind of comes in for those streams as well. But like typically it's like it's my core audience that is donating, and a particular portion of them. And it's not that like the key to the success hasn't been like when somebody donates like $100 or whatever. For me, it's when like that person donates $5 every single week, and that there's just a consistency there. And I wouldn't necessarily have expected that either, that somebody would have that level of support, but it's really there. And I'm kind of, you know, I'm doing pretty well with like a pretty limited audience. So, you know, if you have a bigger audience, then, you know, that money is just kind of there. You know, that money was there before. I just had to find a way to kind of like channel it to me. Yeah.
I just want to clearly say art has value, and money is out there, and if it's a hat or a ticket or whatever it is, make sure that you are not ashamed to ask for it, because I think generally this is my big, you know, like bumper sticker theories. I think that, you know, art has been devalued so much over years, and so it's just like, well, you know, give people a chance. So Brandon, in terms of artist discovery and growing an audience, like how have you found live streaming to contribute to that?
It has, the biggest thing that we've been able to do, and it's a part of our live streaming strategy, like I said, is our monthly call out to our community, so that people can join our stream and they can play snippets of their song, and we can basically save those songs and kind of stash pile them and say, all right, who do we want to have perform, you know, this week? And they can come from anywhere in the world, and you know, any level of experience that they have, as long as we really like their music. So I think it, you know, that has been really helpful as far as discovering new artists. And I mean, in terms of the discovery part comes from us. So in terms of other people discovering these artists, again, going back to the monetization thing, I mean, we kind of have a little bit different, perspectives on this, I think, because Tim is actually a musician who's done this, and he's, curating these shows periodically, whereas we have one-off performance with these artists. So again, just making sure that everyone who sees this artist, they know where they can support them, how they can support them. And then just, as a team, we're finding resources to help the community support them even better. Like, if you guys are familiar with Linktree is working really hard on an artist campaign that allows you to now have little buttons that will allow you to monetize, and people can donate, and you can even you have really cool things where, like, you pay $25 and I'll make you a custom song that shouts you out, and those things are really helpful. And we work really hard to educate our artists on these resources as well. So I totally agree that art, it has to be valued, and it is a little bit devalued. So we want to just kind of make sure that the artists are connecting with as many people as possible and encouraging them to donate in a way that feels natural to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a couple of minutes left. I want to keep going, but I just want to get a sense of if there's any questions, because I have a few more questions that I want to ask, but I don't want to deny any audience questions. So please. Oh, there is a question. Okay. Let me just read this. Okay. Yeah. So do you think that the unfortunate spotlight that the pandemic put on just how difficult this has been for musicians is one of the reasons you're finding people so generous, I guess, in terms of donations? Do you think this generosity will continue when touring / live shows become the norm again? That is, I don't know who that question was from, but thank you for that question. Who wants to answer that?
I can start. I think that's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't know. I can't give a firm answer on what will happen after the pandemic, because there's a lot of things about after the pandemic that I'm not sure about. But I can say that while the pandemic is happening and we have people who are generous, again, just educating artists and the community on ways that you can support. So whether it's, getting your Linktree set up, whether it's working with some, merch suppliers to figure out how you can monetize off of your merch, whether it is finding ways to help artists set up a Patreon or whatever it is. I mean, just kind of like conditioning them for after the pandemic hopefully is finally over, and allowing, a way for the community to continue to support you. And I hope, that will happen, and I will try my hardest and really fight to make sure that artists are aware of all of the opportunities that they have to have that continue.
100%. Yeah. Tim, do you have a transition plan?
Yeah. No transition plan. I mean, I feel like very confident that money is still there and will still be there afterwards. There's like, people were doing this kind of thing on Twitch or whatever, like before the pandemic hit, and making money doing it. Like that, the existence of people streaming and people paying for that experience was there already. And I think that, yeah, I definitely, like, there was a particular level of generosity, I think, during, especially kind of like the earlier period of the streams that I was doing, but it's maintained. And it's like, I don't know if generosity is entirely the right word for it as well, or, I mean, maybe it's different things, but like, the people who have watched me, I didn't think that I would be sort of like 2 years in from starting this process, and there's people who've watched it every week. And, they're getting something from it, and they want to support in response to that. They want to like actually kind of like pay for this thing that they're getting. So I don't see it as like a kind of a charitable thing in that regard. I think like people really value this, and a huge thing that the whole streaming experience put a spotlight on for me is like how much we have a bit of a kind of urban focus in terms of sort of like the sort of musical experience and what we think about. And I speak about this from some like a perspective of like doing this very much myself, but like I think huge proportion of the population of the world lives in, especially in Canada, like very far from anywhere, or like in the suburbs of some town, or like in a country that I'm never going to go on tour to. So I don't know, there was somebody who was watching the stream from Morocco the other day. I'm probably never going to go and play in Morocco. So if they like what that thing is and they want to watch every week, they can. And yeah, and I think there's a lot of people who aren't able to get out to shows, that people aren't touring close to them. Maybe they have kids and can't leave the house, or like there's accessibility issues, or they just don't like being in a concert venue, and they're still going to want to watch these things. And like I say, I think it's a fundamentally different entertainment experience than being at a live venue. So even when there's touring, you know, I think people will still want to watch the streams for what it is that they provide, and they'll want to support that. So yeah, I just think maybe the amount of the donations goes down, but there's still a lot of people out there who want to support and pay for the entertainment that they are receiving.
Oh, I'm like, there's a reason access is in our domain name, you know, like we really believe in not just accessibility for like, you know, the urban rural thing, but also just like how old you are. Like I can't, part of the reason I started hosting at my house in 2011 was because I had babies at that point and I wanted to have shows. So I made the shows come to me, and they've grown up like falling asleep upstairs here, like hearing a concert happening downstairs. And that was normalized in my house from an early age. And we're not, you know, we're on the East Coast of Canada where tours often wouldn't, you know, so we had to make our own shows. And so I would say like Montreal, New York, like you're having people stop. You have so many options for shows all the time. And so when live streaming was a thing, we were hearing from so many people who maybe hadn't been flying to those big cities to see those shows, or hadn't been able to get a babysitter and, you know, pay the parking and whatever to go downtown, or they had other accessibility issues, like they have issues around, you know, sensory sensitivities, like they can't be overstimulated, or you know, folks with autism have a really hard time sometimes with like nightclubs. And you know, we've had at Side Door Access with the live streams, we've done a lot with folks who are, you know, like have various disabilities that we're adapting for, that you can actually adapt for those things on live streams. And even thinking about like around, you know, people who don't want to be around alcohol, like there's such a huge culture of being around, you know, booze and drugs in the scene. And if you can't be with that, you can do a live stream and be really separated from that. So yeah, huge parts of that. And so I will always advocate, even when we go back, to consider a hybrid. Like, what is the hybrid version? So you can keep that live stream audience in some way, even if it's an omniscient observer, like it's a, you know, camera on the wall. I think there's actually a market for that, to say there's a stationary camera if you can't afford a, you know, a production of the live stream, you know. An answer here, a question here from the audience is again, I wonder if you could speak to the ephemeral, I'm going to say this wrong. I'm going to say ephemeral. Yes. Ephemeral. No, I can't say this. How do you say ephemeral quality? But they said ephemerality.
Ephemerality?
Yes, thank you. It's late here. Of live streams. Are you more interested in streams that can be archived or seen later, or ones that, like a live show, can happen once and they're gone? How do you want to answer that, Brandon?
So our strategy is that once the stream is over, it is archived on our YouTube. I think that's, you know, really cool because people can get lost in the content and just kind of like explore it. But also, you know, I think from the artist perspective, you know, for my job, when I'm researching artists, I'm looking at what they've done on other platforms as well. So it's helpful just for validation to say that, you know, they were able to perform and this is the type of quality that they were able to produce, especially during a pandemic. So, you know, it opens more opportunities for them. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, YouTube just automatically archives stuff and you can set the privacy as you like, or just delete the file if you want to. I feel like I'm still figuring that out a little bit, like what I want to do with that, because I'm coming up, I think it's like 85 streams or something I've done at this point. And right now they're all available on there. And I keep an eye on the statistics, and people do kind of like go back and watch them. I think it's very much about that live experience when it's happening. And I think a lot of people who would regularly watch, if they can't watch it live, they're not necessarily as interested in watching it after the fact, because it's, like I say, that, the interaction is such a big part of it, I think. And so if you're not part of that conversation, it's not as appealing, but I do see that people do kind of go to them. So I'm leaving them up there for right now, but I'm kind of undecided about like longer term what the approach will be.
Yeah, it's kind of on Side Door, the artist chooses if they want to keep it and post it and keep it going for however long. And if they own the rights to the music, then they can have the choice to do that. But it's interesting. I ran into a couple and they're like, oh, we're watching. We had Sloan. They did a show that was actually a 22-year-old concert, and they broadcast it. And they were in the chat with the fans talking about it as it was premiering. And so there was an engagement strategy for them. And it was great. It was like the biggest show we had in 6 months. And then I ran into a friend and they're like, oh, we're going to watch it Tuesday night. I'm like, but it's archived. You can watch it anytime. It's happening all the time. And they're like, no, we have a date. We're going to get some drinks. We're going to sit on the couch. And so they had planned to watch an archived show like at a certain day in the future as a date, which I thought that's behavior change for sure. And, we've got a couple of minutes here, but one thing I wanted to ask you about is, how has your audience behavior changed in terms of like technological prowess, like how are they doing in terms of navigating? And this probably depends on the audience's age too, of who's out there, but like, how has it changed over the pandemic, how the audience is using the technology?
From my perspective, our audience is primarily Gen Z and, late millennials, so they move like water. So they are with the times. Sometimes they even teach me new things that I can definitely apply to our future shows. So
absolutely, yeah, and expect like Google/Apple quality in like everything, like design, UI, like it all.
Yeah. We live in that age. This is probably a little bit off topic, but you have tools like Canva. And you have Streamlabs and all these really cool things that allow you to create these high quality looking like they have the largest budget in the world productions, and they don't. And then in just terms of like if we're moving to a platform that maybe they're not familiar with, so thinking back to when Twitch was initially thought of as something that was just for gamers, and we started to do our live streams there, finding ways that we can make it as easy as possible for them to get acclimated with that platform, and view it as easy as possible. So, and I swear I don't have a sponsorship with Linktree, but they have a integration. I can actually put the Twitch live stream into the Linktree, so that when they click the Linktree, it automatically starts to play there, so they don't have to go to the website to watch it. So things like that have been really helpful for us.
Absolutely, yeah. For you, Tim, like, how do you find your audience has evolved with technology?
I haven't particularly asked that much more of them from when I started with the streams, but like definitely like people. Some of the kind of older members of the audience have kind of like over time kind of got themselves like figuring out how to just use the YouTube chat or the Facebook chat or whatever. My 95-year-old grandma watches every week, but she's not yet been shown how to use the chat. So that's the next thing we need to get on board.
She's probably like, Tim's on the TV.
No, she has an iPad. She watches it on her iPad.
Of course. Oh my God. iPads are the bane of our existence. They do not operate like every other operating system. We always have to go and find like ancient iPads to test things on every time we do a new feature release, because it's always the iPads that mess everything up. And it's always, folks who are old, like the ones who are like not as comfortable with technology or using iPads. I find that's a big thing. And it's like most of our customer support questions are in and around like, how do I Chromecast this to my TV? And I'm like, well, none of that software is ours, but we will help you. Yeah. And so it's all in and around just helping the audience navigate maybe something that's brand new to them. But Brandon, you're so right. Like it's, man, like the folks who have grown up with this, like not only do they know they move like water, as you say, but it's just like the advantages that brings to being able to engage, getting somewhere faster in terms of the live stream, understanding how to find out things about the artists. Like, and that's why, I'm not sponsored by Linktree either, but I think it's important to know how those things all fit together when not only you're an artist, but you're a fan too, because then you look for it. You look if they have a Patreon, you look if they have this, and you can interact with an artist in a much more direct way than you ever could before, which is fantastic. Like, so we have 2 minutes left. I just want to finish off with, Coachella and Stagecoach announced this week that they're dropping all COVID protocols and going, I feel like that was an announcement I saw this week that I felt like, okay, here we go. This is maybe the rebirth. I hate to be the one to say that on a broadcast and then be like proved wrong later, but where are you at with live performances, Brandon? You said you had your first one since February 2020 last night. Like, how did that feel? And like, what is the future for this getting back into real life?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? And again, I mean, we do a lot. I mean, our company does a lot of live streams outside of just artist performances as well. So this one was in Los Angeles, and we're based in New York City. And we were able to bring 225 people to this space, which was we expected 60 for context. So it just kind of makes me excited that we've done such a great job of building this community that these cities want us to come out and have our shows and do things there. So just kind of thinking about, A, can we fit these people all into the space now? And B, thinking about, I must have gotten probably 20 DMs of people saying that they had FOMO because they wanted to be there. So back to your earlier point of how we can live stream these and kind of do this hybrid model, because the people who have been a part of this community throughout the pandemic want to see what's going on as well and just feel like they're there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Figuring that out.
Yeah, integrating the virtual who need to stay virtual into the future is going to be the next task for sure. Yeah, Tim?
I was very lucky to get out on a tour of Europe in November last year, and that was very interesting to me because I'd had such a good time with the streaming stuff that I was like, do I even need to play live anymore? And then got playing live and I was like, this is amazing. I really miss this. I need to do lots and lots and lots of this. And I'm excited to do more of that as we go. On the, to kind of speak to the hybrid question, I'm not really sure how that works, because as I've said, the thing that I feel like is the core of what I'm doing streaming wise is that interaction. And I don't know how well I could make that work in a venue show with other people. Like if we're gonna have a big screen with all the comments, I'm gonna respond to that. And if that's interesting for the people who are there. But I feel like there's a sort of hybridization of the audiences in some ways that I mean, it's maybe that's not really a good choice of words, but what I've noticed that in kind of doing these streams as the tour was coming up, I'm able to let these people know who a lot of them have only ever engaged with my music on streams. I'm able to let them know about the live shows, and then those people were coming out to the gigs, and then there's people coming out to the gigs, and I'm telling them about the live streams, and then they started watching those. So it's sort of I think the two can kind of play into each other a little bit, but I don't know. I guess we don't have much time to talk about that, but I'm very interested in your perspective from Cider about that hybrid. What hybrid possibilities there are.
Yeah, I wanted to play off of each other, just like you're saying. I love that. I want that integration, and I want that sort of cross promotion constantly. I know that you can't, when you're having a video on a live show, that you can't play to two audiences. So I never expect that to be a thing. You got to pick an audience who's the primary audience, but we are out of time. I don't want to keep anybody longer than they need to be kept. And Brandon, I know you're in work mode right now too. So hit the chat here with your handles so that people can find you and have a continued conversation afterwards. Tim, it was so nice to see you. I swear to God, you didn't pay me to put these here. He just makes beautiful posters. And Brandon, it was so nice to meet you as well. I really hope we get to meet in person in Austin for South by.
Yes, email me. We will definitely grab a drink.
Listen, everyone who's in the audience, you did a great job, and thanks for being here. And please follow these amazing humans. Keep talking about this stuff. We're all navigating a new future together. Thanks, and have a great night, everyone.
You guys.
Thanks so much.